Today we're going to talk about 6 signs that your breakup is not permanent. But perhaps the quickest way that you can figure out if your breakup is permanent or not is determining whether or not you even have a chance of getting your ex back. Luckily for you, I've put together a special quiz on my website, www.exboyfriendrecovery.com, that's designed to answer this very question. Basically, all you got to do if you want to take this quiz is simply look in the description link below this YouTube video and click on it. It's literally that simple. Okay, so now that that is out of the way, let's start talking about the 6 signs that your breakup is not permanent. Now, before I get started, I feel it's important to mention that I didn't just pull these 6 signs out of a hat. In fact, when I went to Google to look at some of my competitors to see what they were saying, I got a little disappointed in some of their responses or some of their signs. It just seems like they made them up, but I did not want to do that. So instead what I did was I took a look at all of my success stories. Well, technically not all, but a lot of my success stories, and started looking at some of the behaviors that exes would exhibit that show that they wanted their ex back. Therefore, the breakup wasn't permanent. In other words, that's just a really long way of saying that these signs are based on real life scenarios and real life success stories. So let's start with sign number 1. Sign number 1 is getting your ex to invest a lot of time into you. Okay, so what does this look like? Well, in other words, what we're looking for in investment has a lot of different connotations, but ultimately what we're looking for is time. How much time and energy is your ex putting forth into you? Now, I feel it's important to mention that we're not just caring about them having a 3-hour-long conversation with you one time. We're looking for a long-term period of time where they're having 3-hour conversations with you consistently after the breakup. Now, it's also kind of normal for them to kind of flip in and out. Again, don't be discouraged if your ex is having a 3-hour conversation with you and then they kind of go away for a couple of days, only to come back in a couple of days. What we're looking for is the long period of time. Now, we're also looking for investment through text messaging, phone calls, or even in-person interactions. But of course, investment of time isn't the only factor that we're actually looking at. That's where sign number 2 comes into play. Sign number 2, your ex's responses are meaningful. Okay. Let's say that your ex is investing a lot of time into interacting with you. That's a good sign, right? According to sign number 1. But what if all of that time interacting with you is negative? It's just a 3-hour fight and argument every single day. Does that mean your breakup is not permanent? Not exactly. That's where sign number 2 comes into play. What we're looking for here are meaningful, positive type of responses. So what is an example of a meaningful, positive type of response? Well, generally speaking, a positive/meaningful type of response is not a one-word response. If you reach out in a text message to your ex and you only get a cool or a that's awesome, that's not a very meaningful type of a response. Whereas if you reach out with some really, really grand text message and they respond with almost as much words in their text message with meaning behind their text message, that's a good thing. That's what we're looking for. Let's pretend that you reached out to your ex with a text message that says, "You are not going to believe what happened to me." Pretty good pattern interrupt/hook, something that can get your ex to respond. But of course, usually the response is, "What happened?" But this time your ex responds with, "Actually, you're not going to believe what happened to me. I ran into so-and-so at so-and-so place and it was awesome." And they go into this really long explanation of this story. That's a meaningful response. And if your conversation is littered with these type of positive, meaningful responses, it's usually a great sign that there are lingering feelings. Sign number 3, a year has not yet passed. So what is really interesting about my job is that I have so much data to pour through that we actually learn things that really no one else knows. For example, did you know that the average rebound relationship will usually last between 5.2 months. Also, did you know that the average success story we will have will happen between month 3 and month 6? In other words, you need to be patient if you want to get your ex back. But what happens after a year goes by and you haven't gotten your ex back? Well, generally speaking, from what we have seen, your chances are much lower of getting an ex back after a year has gone by. So what does that usually mean? Does that mean that if you're trying to get an ex back after years apart, is it possible? It is still possible, but the odds are against you. In fact, I would say that the vast majority of people who have gotten their exes back after a year have utilized something that we like to call the moving on without moving on theory. Essentially, they have tried everything they can to get their ex back and have completely failed. This failure is completely devastating to them, so they have only one choice. They can simply move on. It's only after they've moved on that they start dating someone new or make some huge career breakthrough that their ex begins to take notice and finds them attractive again. But nevertheless, I'm getting off topic here. Ultimately speaking, if a year has gone by, your chances are lower and you need to adopt that moving on without moving on type of idea. But nevertheless, it's something important for you guys to understand. It can be difficult to try to use traditional strategies to get your ex back after a year. You need to change the game up a little bit. Let's move on to sign number 4. That's where an ex will randomly call you asking for a meetup. Okay, this is a concept that I've talked a lot about, but haven't maybe given it the necessary camera time it deserves. And this is the idea of the pendulum swing. So think of it like this. When you go through a breakup, you will go through many different ranges of emotion: anger, sadness, grief, depression, sometimes even happiness, relief. Well, your ex is going through the same thing. And I always tell my client, look at your ex as if he's going through a pendulum of emotions, where one moment he can be extremely excited about being over a breakup and moving on or finding someone new, and then the next moment extremely sad and depressed. So what we tend to find happen in our success stories is when people or when exes go through that sort of sad, depressed time, they'll call you and ask to see you in person. They won't just do this one time, they'll do it multiple times. This is actually something that we see so often during the no contact rule. We have started integrating it into our ex-boyfriend recovery program when we're talking to our clients and preparing them. Don't be shocked if your ex reaches out to you trying to meet up with you. Now the question becomes, should you take them on the meetup? Well, the results we've seen from women who have decided to take their ex on a meetup have been a little varied. Sure, some men just begged for their exes back on the spot, while other men just wanted a hookup or booty call. So what's the right way to approach the situation? Well, ultimately that's going to completely depend on timing. Are you in the midst of a no contact rule when they're reaching out to you? If you are, then you simply need to ignore them unless they're basically saying to you, hey, I want you back, let's get back together. That's one of the only situations that you can break a no contact rule in because you've achieved your goal, you've gotten your ex back. But if they're randomly calling you for a meetup after the no contact rule is over, I actually say go for it. See your ex in person, because usually that's when good things happen. The only little fly in the ointment is for people who meet up with their ex without having built a foundation of rapport and attraction. So make sure that you feel like you've built a small foundation where they're starting to grow interested in you again. Sign number 5, your ex is doing poorly without you. It's funny, actually, this is a situation or a sign that I see most of my clients going through. They're depressed and sad and angry about the breakup, and they start posting things on social media about how sad they are, or they post this sort of YouTube type song where they're basically trying to say, this is how I'm feeling, and it makes them look kind of bad. Ultimately, our focus usually goes on helping those women not to do those type of behaviors, but the same thing can be said about your ex. If they are doing this same type of behavior without you, it's usually a good sign that they're really broken up about it. But the question then would become, well, why are they broken up about it when they're the ones who broke up with me? Okay, I am going to teach you something mind-blowing that will maybe skew your perception of men a little bit. But believe it or not, most of the time when your ex breaks up with you, they paint themselves as the victim. The theory or the thinking that they're behind, or the psychology behind this, is they're literally going to be thinking, look at what you made me do. Look at the pain you're making me have. They make you sort of this enemy. The ironic part is that they're the ones who created the breakup. So don't be shocked if you get all sorts of weird type of Facebook reactions or social media reactions from your ex after a breakup, where they're posting quotes or they're posting, "I'm better off without her." In fact, one of the funniest things I ever saw was our private Facebook group. There was a woman who posted after her breakup that her ex literally tried rapping a rap song that he wrote about how much better he was after a breakup. The ironic part is this woman got her ex back. This is why I actually used this example in this particular video. Sign number 6, your ex drools over you from afar. So a couple of years ago, we got this really interesting success story. In fact, the success story is so much I screenshotted it on my phone because I always wanted to remember in case I got stuck on writing an article or filming a video. And it's an important lesson in what's going through an ex's mind after a breakup when they're really still into you. So this is word from an ex-boyfriend who asked his ex-girlfriend back on what he went through after the breakup. Actually, perhaps it's better if I start by reading what the successful woman who got her ex back had to say. My former ex made a confession the other day. Here's part of it. I wasn't kidding when I said it sounded like a script Chris had made up. Now, confidence is key. Improve yourself and let yourself shine for the world to see. I wish everyone the best of luck. So that's what she had to say, and she attached a screenshot of a text her ex sent to her. Then I saw you again. You looked so beautiful. You looked so confident. You made friends. You got so impressive. In reflection, you made me fall for you all over again. All these feelings came back and I realized how perfect you are. You were everything I could ever ask for. I was a bleeping fool for not seeing it before. And I knew at that point that I needed you in my life. Now, the point of the text message that I really want you to hone in on is the first part. Then I saw you again. You looked so beautiful. You looked so confident. You made friends. You got so impressive. And in reflection, you made me fall for you all over again. Now, believe it or not, but what this ex is saying is that he watched her from afar and watched how she grew. She didn't let the breakup break her. She actually bent the breakup to her will. He grew a little jealous and basically wanted or couldn't imagine his life without her after he was without her. Crazy, right? But ultimately, the important thing is here, we established with this client this mentality of becoming ungettable, becoming the super confident, untouchable woman that every man would want. And it actually drew her ex back. He actually drooled over her from afar. Now, this is such a key, and yet so many people overlook this simple fact. That is a text message identically from an ex-boyfriend who begged for his ex-girlfriend back, literally telling you what was going through his mind and how he struggled to imagine what life would be like without her. Now, what always kind of annoys me when I'm working with new clients is they have this certain assumption that if they follow the rules and don't really put in the work, that an ex is going to drool over them. But that's really not how it works. You need to actively put in the work to put yourself in a position where an ex will want to drool over you, because it just doesn't happen. Now, sometimes people can get lucky. An ex can make a mistake or realize the mistake of his ways and beg for you back, but for most of our clients, that is not what happens. You need to at least put some work in to earn the pedestal that your ex can place you on. Thank you so much for getting to the end of this video. Hopefully those signs were revolutionary for you. Now, if you like this content or you want more content like this, I highly recommend that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you take that quiz that I was talking about at the beginning of the YouTube video, the X recovery chances quiz, that will help you understand what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back. Again, just look in the description link below this YouTube video, click on it. It's literally that simple. I'll see you next time.